As the Second World War drew to its violent close, an empire of ash and ruin was left to the ages. But beneath the rubble, another legacy remained, one of secrets, buried in the earth, submerged in forgotten waters, or simply lost to memory. In the decades that followed, the ghosts of the Third Reich would begin to surface. Underground factories, clandestine laboratories, and experimental weapons emerged from their tombs. Rumors of trains laden with gold and stolen art proved to be more than legend. Personal relics of a vanquished ideology were unearthed. Adolf Hitler's Walter PPK pistol, discovered in the ruins of his Berlin bunker. Hermann Göring's ostentatious ring, heavy with the symbols of his fallen regime. Hitler's luxurious personal train, a mobile headquarters for a war of annihilation. But these were not just objects. They were keys to a hidden geography of power. Vast, sub-road into a mountain, the Berghof, Hitler's Alpine residence, and the Führer bunker itself, the final, claustrophobic stage for a global tragedy. Nowhere is this buried darkness more palpable than in the dense forests of what is now Poland. Here, crumbling and overgrown, lie the remains of the Wolf's Lair. This was Hitler's first military headquarters on the Eastern Front, the strategic heart from which he directed the invasion of the Soviet Union. It was far more than a command center. It was a fortress of paranoia. A sprawling complex of over 80 buildings and 50 reinforced bunkers, camouflaged beneath a canopy of ancient trees. It was a world unto itself, shielded by minefields, sniper nests, and barbed wire. A labyrinth of underground tunnels connected this concrete nervous system, an architecture designed to satisfy a leader who saw assassins in every shadow. Today, visitors walk through a scene of calculated destruction. Colossal slabs of reinforced concrete, some weighing thousands of tons. German troops attempted to dynamite the complex, to obliterate it, to drag its secrets with them into oblivion. Yet the ruins speak. The discovery of its intricate network of hidden corridors and escape routes reveals a profound desperation. The entire fortress was engineered not only for command, but for a final, catastrophic exit. Explosive traps were integrated into its very foundations, designed so that vast sections could be instantly destroyed, a final act of scorched earth defiance should the enemy ever breach its walls. It was a design philosophy that promised one of two outcomes: escape or a self-inflicted Armageddon. Each unearthed artifact, each rediscovered bunker, is more than a relic of a bygone war. It is a chilling testament to the scale of a dark ambition, a reminder that even concrete and steel can be monuments to fear, and that the earth will always, eventually, give up its dead. Deep within the Owl Mountains of Poland, a secret of colossal proportions lies buried. It is a vast, unfinished network of tunnels, an underworld carved from solid rock between 1943 and 1945. Known as Project Riese, or the Giant, it remains one of the most enigmatic undertakings of the Third Reich. Orchestrated by the SS, this subterranean labyrinth was excavated by thousands of prisoners, torn from concentration camps and forced to work in suffocating darkness. Under brutal conditions, they clawed kilometers of corridors from the earth, linking immense underground chambers. The scale was staggering. Sections reveal sophisticated ventilation systems, heavy armored doors, and even railway lines, the skeleton of a massive complex designed to withstand the most ferocious aerial bombardment. But its ultimate purpose was lost to the chaos of a collapsing empire. Historians speculate. Was it to be a secure command center for the Nazi elite, a subterranean replica of the Führer's bunker, meant to shield Hitler as the Eastern Front disintegrated? Or perhaps a clandestine factory, hidden from Allied eyes, for the development of unprecedented weapons? The project was left eerily abandoned, as if its builders vanished into the very shadows they had created, leaving behind only questions. Yet, hundreds of kilometers to the northeast, another fortress had already played its part in the regime's dramatic downfall. This was the Wolf's Lair, Hitler's primary Eastern Front headquarters. To thwart detection by Allied aircraft, its bunkers were draped in camouflage nets. Nearby, anti-aircraft batteries stood ready to repel any attack from the sky. It was within this sinister complex that history turned on the 20th of July, 1944. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg, a key figure in a conspiracy known as Operation Valkyrie, attempted to assassinate Hitler with a bomb concealed in a briefcase. While the precise details of the attack remain debated, the explosion tore through the conference room. The complex was ravaged, but the Führer survived. The failed attempt left him with injuries, but more profoundly, it deepened the paranoia that consumed his inner circle. Security measures were immediately intensified. More barriers and deadly traps were woven into the fabric of the fortress. Despite its formidable defenses, its end was inevitable. As Soviet forces closed in during the early months of 1945, retreating German troops enacted a final, nihilistic order. They detonated hundreds of explosives, reducing the nerve center of the Eastern Front to a wilderness of shattered concrete. Today, all that remains are colossal fragments of steel and stone, collapsed shelters overgrown by the forests of Poland. They are silent monuments, not only to a regime that conspired within their walls to conquer a world, but to the secrets and suffering that are forever sealed within the earth itself. They rise from ache. Above the smoldering ruins of Berlin, Hamburg, and Vienna, the Flak Towers, stood as monolithic fortresses against a sky filled with fire. They were colossal elevated bunkers, crowned with brutalist platforms of stone and concrete, built in the final, desperate years of the war to defy the devastating air raids of the Allied forces. These were more than simple gun emplacements. They were vertical bastions, each a self-sufficient fortress. Within their massive walls, they provided shelter for up to 10,000 civilians. They were vaults for ammunition, classified documents, and priceless cultural artifacts rescued from the city's museums. As Berlin braced for its imminent destruction, each tower complex scanned the heavens with radar and spotlights, its heavy artillery prepared to tear into the formations of enemy bombers. In total, 8 such complexes were built, 3 in Berlin, 2 in Hamburg, and 3 in Vienna. They were conceived in pairs. The G Tower, or Gefechtssturm, was the instrument of combat, bristling with multiple 128mm anti-aircraft cannons. Its counterpart was the L Tower, the Lichtturm, a guide tower equipped with advanced radar and remote command equipment, serving as the complex's electronic eyes and brain. Though some stood 43 meters high, the giants of Berlin reached a staggering 70 meters into the sky. Their structural superiority was unmatched. Despite intense and relentless bombing, their thick concrete walls withstood Allied strikes with minimal damage. When the final battle came, as Soviet forces pushed into Berlin in 1945, these fortresses became the final, frenzied refuges for the city's last, most desperate defenders. But as the Reich's domain above ground crumbled, an even more secret effort was underway deep beneath it. While the towers guarded the cities, German officials rushed to safeguard the cultural goods looted from a conquered continent. Of the hundreds of hidden vaults, the largest and most spectacular lay buried within the Altaussee salt mine in Austria. Here, in the cold, still darkness, the Nazis concealed a breathtaking trove, thousands of paintings, sculptures, and other invaluable artifacts. It was a subterranean gallery of stolen genius, the plundered soul of Europe, hidden away in the heart of a mountain. Today, the eroded remains of the Flak Towers still scar the skylines of Europe, silent witnesses to a conflict that left a civilization in ashes. They stand alongside the empty, crystalline chambers of the salt mines as dual monuments. One, a testament to a war of industrial destruction reaching for the heavens. The other, a testament to a war of cultural plunder burrowing into the earth. They are the enduring architecture of an empire's ultimate ambition, to not only conquer the world, but to possess its memory. In the twilight of a collapsing empire, a vast and desperate project was underway. High-ranking Nazi officials orchestrated the relocation of priceless works of art from across a conquered Europe, hoarding them for a future that would never come, the cultural bedrock of a 1,000-year Reich. Deep within the cold, labyrinthine salt mines of Altauss, Austria, a stolen history was concealed. Here lay the Ghent altarpiece, Jan van Eyck's transcendent masterpiece. Beside it, works by Michelangelo, by Camille Bernier, and countless others, treasures that today would be valued in the hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars apiece. But this subterranean gallery was a hostile one. The constant damp, the chill of the rock, the specter of collapse, all threatened to undo the fragile genius of centuries. To combat the decay, the SS forced laborers into a frantic effort, constructing massive wooden crates, swaddling canvases and waterproof tarps, and erecting protective walls against the encroaching earth. As defeat became inevitable, a final, terrible order was given, a scorched earth directive to destroy the art, to ensure that if it could not belong to the Führer, it would belong to no one. It was an act of cultural sacrilege, averted only by the quiet courage of local miners. This small band of peaceful resistance secretly sabotaged the plan, replacing live explosives with fakes and redirecting demolition charges to detonate harmlessly, far from the critical chambers. When the region fell, the Allied program known as the Monuments Men raced against the clock. Following an order from President Franklin D. Roosevelt for a full cultural survey, they descended into the mine, beginning one of the greatest art recovery efforts in modern history. Yet, for all the masterpieces they rescued from the brink, one legend slipped through their grasp, vanishing into the fog of war. It remains one of the Second World War's most unsettling mysteries: the impossible disappearance of the Amber Room. The question defies logic. How could an entire room, a chamber of gold and treasure, simply cease to confound the most skeptical minds? It was a dazzling masterpiece of spatial design, covering 55 square meters. Its walls were a mosaic of amber panels, weighing a total of 6 tons, and lavishly adorned with gold leaf sculptures, intricate mirrors, and other invaluable gemstones. Constructed in the early 1700s in Berlin, the room was gifted in 1716 to Tsar Peter the Great. Installed in the Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg, it was celebrated as the 8th wonder of the world, and there it remained, a testament to royal splendor until the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. It was a monument to beauty, swallowed by an era of brutality. Its disappearance serves as a stark reminder that what humanity can create in centuries of genius, it can lose in a single moment of madness, leaving behind only a ghost, a legend, and an unanswered question. In the relentless advance of the Third Reich, a line was crossed at the Catherine Palace, a sacrilege committed against history itself. They did the unthinkable. The Amber Room, a breathtaking symphony of fossilized resin and gold leaf, was stolen. Piece by painstaking piece, it was disassembled, crated, and spirited away to the fortress of Königsberg. It was from there, within the castle's stone heart, that it slipped from the pages of history into the realm of legend, vanishing without a trace. And around its absence, a dark folklore began to coil. Whispers persist of a secret bunker, deep within the earth, its entrance guarded by the Reich's most ingenious and lethal traps. Other stories send it to the frigid depths of the Baltic, loaded aboard the Wilhelm Gustloff, a vessel torpedoed by a Soviet submarine, its hold filled with plundered treasures. Unofficial histories speak of a curse, a shadow that fell upon those who dared to seek it. Treasure hunters, it is said, met with mysterious and untimely ends, their fates feeding the myth of a wonder that refused to be found. For decades, the pursuit became a ghost hunt, sweeping through the collapsed tunnels, abandoned mines, and war-torn ruins of a fallen empire. A breakthrough came from the very place it was last seen. In 1944, British Royal Air Force bombers reduced Königsberg Castle to ash and rubble. Amid the devastation, fragments were found, tantalizing clues. Some believed the room had been incinerated in the inferno, yet other pieces, intricate mosaics, individual panels, surfaced in Germany, in Italy, in the most unlikely of places. This fueled a chilling theory, that the magnificent chamber was not merely hidden, but torn asunder. In the year 2003, a masterful reconstruction was unveiled, incorporating the few original fragments that survived the war. It stands as a testament, a brilliant echo of a lost masterpiece. But the true fate of the original 8th wonder of the world remains one of history's most profound and haunting enigmas. Yet, the Reich's most guarded secrets were not all forged in gold and amber. Some were being forged in the very crucible of creation, in a race to harness the power of the atom. In the final, desperate months of 1944, as Allied forces closed in, German physicists scrambled to give their Führer the ultimate weapon. In the small town of Haigerloch, deep in the country's southwest, a select team of researchers descended into a humble brewery cellar. This subterranean space was transformed into a secret laboratory, shielded from aerial detection by a thick concrete bunker. There, hidden from the world, they assembled an experimental nuclear reactor, a lattice of uranium cubes suspended in a tank of heavy water, a frantic gamble to forge a weapon that could reverse the tide of inevitable defeat. By the dawn of 1945, with the borders of the Reich collapsing, the first tests began. The lost room and the failed weapon, two phantoms of a fallen empire. One, a monument to stolen beauty, the other, a specter of ultimate destruction. They remain buried, not just in the earth, but in our collective memory, haunting reminders of an ambition so vast, it consumed everything it sought to possess. In a cavern carved beneath a castle church, a final, desperate gamble was underway. The project was known as B8, and at its helm was the legendary physicist Werner Heisenberg. His team worked feverishly, racing against the clock of a collapsing empire to achieve a self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction, a breakthrough that could have altered the very course of history. But the war was in its death throes. The evidence of Germany's fall was a constant, suffocating presence, hindering the reactor's development at every turn. Supply chains had withered. Allied bombers rained destruction from the skies, stalling the advance of Nazi nuclear technology. Critical shipments of heavy water from Norway, the lifeblood of their reactor design, were repeatedly intercepted and sabotaged by audacious Allied commandos. As enemy forces closed in, the dream of atomic power drifted further from their grasp. Yet, the final experiments continued, conducted under the watchful eyes of SS officers, men driven by a profound desperation to seize any last, war-winning advantage. In 1945, with the conflict all but lost, the Americans launched Operation Alsos. It was a coordinated effort by the Manhattan Project, a shadow war fought not for territory, but for knowledge. A mission to infiltrate, capture, and control all Nazi research into atomic energy. They soon discovered the secret site at Haigerloch. Descending into the earth, they found a scene that chilled them to the bone. The experimental reactor was nearly complete, its core intact, with cubes of uranium spying testament to how dangerously close the Nazis had come to unlocking the atom. Allied experts moved swiftly, dismantling the apparatus, its components seized for analysis, erasing a future that must never be. Today, the cave is a museum, the reactor's ghost a haunting relic of a world that almost was. Yet the Reich's secrets were not confined to physics alone. As the Allied invasion pushed ever deeper into Germany, high-ranking officials scrambled to hide a different kind of power, the immense treasure of the Merkers mine. Here, they concealed vast reserves of gold and currency plundered from millions of Jews, Romani people, and other victims across occupied Europe, a fortune forged in genocide. When American troops entered the town of Merkers in April of 1945, they stumbled upon one of the war's most astonishing discoveries. Descending several kilometers into a local salt mine, they were not prepared for what lay in the darkness. They were stunned to find vast tunnels, piled high with burlap sacks, stretching as far as the eye could see. At first, they suspected munitions or simple construction materials, but upon tearing one open, the truth was revealed in a brilliant metallic gleam. The sacks flooding the subterranean chambers were not filled with sand, but with gold bars, silver ingots, and coins of every conceivable origin. Two discoveries unearthed from the German soil in the final days of the war. 1. A weapon of terrifying potential, capable of shaping the future. The other, a hoard of unimaginable wealth, a testament to an unforgivable past. Both were monuments to a fallen regime's ambition, buried in darkness, waiting to be found. Deep within the earth, in the labyrinthine tunnels of a German salt mine, the Third Reich had buried its secrets. Here, the wealth of a plundered continent was spirited away, awaiting a victory that would never come. It was a hoard intended to be laundered in the fires of a new empire, but the shafts of the Merkers mine descended into darkness, and the tons of gold were merely the beginning. As Allied forces pushed deeper, they unearthed the true, horrifying scale of the Nazi plunder. Crate after crate revealed masterpieces of European art, torn from gallery walls. They found the personal belongings of Holocaust victims, intimate relics of lives extinguished. Piles of foreign currency lay stacked beside precious metals, the spoils of a continent-wide expropriation. Each artifact told a grim story of suffering. Each discovery shed new light on the ruthless economic engine that had fueled Hitler's rise in the 1930s and sustained his war machine. The documentation was meticulous. Photographs were taken, films were shot, capturing the evidence of a systematic looting operation. The Monuments Men, a specialized Allied unit, raced against time to secure the stolen heritage. Even the Supreme Allied Commander, General Dwight D. Eisenhower, traveled to the mine, compelled to witness the staggering discovery for himself. The images captured in that subterranean vault would become crucial evidence in the trials that followed, holding Nazi officials accountable for their crimes. They provided historians with a chilling understanding of the sinister economic architecture that underpinned the Third Reich. But not all of the Reich's desperate gambles were buried in the earth. Some were sent to the depths of the sea. In February of 1945, the German submarine U-864 embarked on a clandestine mission, codenamed Operation Caesar. Its cargo was a lifeline for an ally on the brink of collapse. Advanced aircraft components and flasks of liquid mercury, bound for the Empire of Japan. It was a technological transfusion, meant to give Tokyo breathing room against the overwhelming American advance. The Germans, however, had overlooked a fatal flaw in their plan. Allied codebreakers had cracked their most secret transmissions. They knew of the operation, the cargo, and the submarine's intended route. From the port of Lerwick, the British submarine HMS Venturer slipped into the cold northern waters. It was a hunter, dispatched with a single purpose. On the 6th of February, 1945, off the coast of Norway, the Venturer found its prey. What followed was a deadly, submerged ballet of strategy and steel, a dramatic torpedo battle between two unseen adversaries. It would enter the annals of naval warfare as the only recorded instance of one submarine sinking another while both were submerged. A silent, lethal duel fought in the crushing darkness of the abyss. Beneath the frigid waters of the North Sea, a deadly ballet unfolded. A hunter and its prey, locked in a slow-motion duel. The British submarine Ventura stalked its target, the German U-boat U-864. 4 torpedoes sliced through the dark. The German vessel, a phantom of steel, evaded the first, then the second, then the third, but the fourth found its mark. For the 73 souls aboard U-864, the end was swift and absolute. Despite desperate efforts to wrestle their crippled machine back from the abyss, the submarine surrendered to the crushing pressure, becoming a tomb on the ocean floor. It took with it not only its crew, but a secret, deadly cargo. For decades, the ghost ship lay undisturbed. Then, in the year 2003, its wreckage was discovered, revealing a disaster still in progress. The submarine's hull had fractured, releasing its toxic payload. 67 tons of liquid mercury, a silent, creeping poison, had bled into the sea, contaminating an area of nearly 30,000 square meters. The containers, corroding and unstable, posed an environmental threat of unimaginable scale. Norwegian authorities were faced with a monumental decision. To raise the wreck was to risk a catastrophic spill, spreading the mercury far and wide. The submarine's own live torpedoes and mines made any such operation a dance with death. The solution, a decade in the making and costing the equivalent of 200 million euros, was as audacious as the problem was severe. They would not raise the tomb, they would entomb it further. 100,000 tons of sand and rock were strategically layered over the wreckage, creating a permanent sarcophagus on the seabed. This colossal effort succeeded in containing the leakage, burying the war machine and its poison under a man-made mountain. To this day, U-864 remains in its underwater grave, a ghost of a forgotten war, its toxic legacy carefully and perpetually monitored. While some secrets of the Third Reich lie sealed beneath the waves, others haunt the land, whispered as legends. In the final, desperate days of the war, as the Reich crumbled, a new order was given: evacuate the plundered wealth of a continent. Gold, art, and treasures stolen from occupied territories were to be moved back to Germany, hidden from the advancing Allies. We know of desperate vaults, from salt mines to fortified towers. But one myth persists, more phantom than fact: the legend of the gold train. According to the tale, a massive, armored train was loaded in Breslau with gold bars, priceless artworks, and precious artifacts, the accumulated spoils of a brutal conquest. It steamed out of the city, bound for Germany. It made a scheduled stop at a station in Freiburg, Silesia, and then, after resuming its journey, it vanished. A freight train disappearing from the face of the earth. It is a story that belongs to fiction, yet it endures. The simplest explanation is that it never existed, but another possibility lingers: that the Nazis, masters of deception, utilized a secret network of tunnels or an unknown route, spiriting their prize away from the eyes of the world. Historians remain divided, yet the story finds fertile ground in a dark reality. Countless artifacts, looted by the regime, from masterpieces of art to the fabled Amber Room, were never recovered. They exist only as ghosts in museum catalogs and insurance records. The gold train may be a myth, but the treasure it supposedly carried was very real. And so the train becomes something more than a ghost story. It is a symbol of a history that was stolen, a justice that was never served, and a fortune that may still lie waiting. A final, gilded secret, buried somewhere in the heart of a continent still marked by the ghosts of its past. In the shadowed folklore of Lower Silesia, the route of a phantom train weaves through a tapestry of other whispered secrets. The lost Mercer's mine, the enigmatic Project Riese. For decades, the whereabouts of a Nazi train, laden with gold and plundered art, remained a ghost story, a myth confined to the archives of historians and the imaginations of war enthusiasts. Then, in the year 2015, the story roared back to life. Two mining entrepreneurs announced a discovery that would electrify Europe, claiming to possess proof of a hidden stretch of railway buried deep beneath the earth near the city of Wałbrzych. They offered few details, demanding a substantial fee from the Polish government and a contract guaranteeing their company's exclusive rights to the recovery. But secrets of this magnitude cannot be contained. As basic information leaked, a modern gold rush descended. Hundreds of treasure hunters, armed with maps and theories, flocked to the area, spurring geological surveys and besieging local authorities for drilling permits. Under the weight of this public fervor, Polish officials relented. An official, state-sanctioned search began in what would become known as Kilometer 65. The world watched as excavators clawed at the earth, but the search yielded only soil and stone. No verifiable remains of an armored train, let alone a king's ransom in treasure, were ever found. Critics argued it was a triumph of anecdotal testimony over tangible evidence, a local myth that had spun out of control. Nevertheless, the rumor persists, mutating and expanding, often linked to a wider, more conspiratorial idea: a vast, secret complex of tunnels connecting the German chancellery to the collapsing Eastern Front. Yet, not all was lost. Municipal authorities, seeing an opportunity in the global spotlight, harnessed the legend to fuel a surge in tourism for Wałbrzych. Local media chronicled every minor event, from unusual ground-penetrating radar readings to extensive interviews tracing the final, chaotic train routes of the war. The enduring fascination with the gold train serves as a terrifying reminder, a monument to the desperate chaos that consumed the Third Reich as it faced its inevitable collapse. This desperation gave birth to other, darker legends. As the empire crumbled, rumors emerged of an ultimate superweapon, a device so advanced it promised to reverse the tide of the war in its final moments. This myth was born from the discovery of dozens of Nazi superweapon programs, the so-called Wunderwaffe, or wonder weapons. While some of these projects were terrifyingly real, most never left the drawing board, fantastical designs from engineers, feeding the delusions of a leader who fantasized about technologies worthy of science fiction. These were not merely weapons of war. They were fever dreams, forged in the crucible of collapse, last gasps of a monstrous ideology clinging to impossible futures. In the legends they left behind, we see not the promise of a secret history, but the chilling echo of a regime consumed by its own destructive madness. In the twilight of the Second World War, as the Third Reich crumbled, its archives yielded tales of terrifying ambition. Yet one project, whispered in the shadows of history, remains a chilling and controversial enigma. 1. Accounts describe a machine forged from a hard, dense metal, standing between 3.7 and 4.6 meters tall. Its form, resembling a massive monolithic bell, was nearly 3 meters in diameter. Within its metallic shell, 2 cylinders were engineered to spin in opposite directions. They were to be filled with a substance of almost mythical properties. This metallic fluid, its existence never verified, was reputedly stored in meter-high thermoses, sheathed in thick lead, a clear testament to its profound toxicity. When activated, the bell was said to project an invisible field of death. Within a radius of 150 to 200 meters, life withered. Animal tissue reportedly crystallized at a cellular level. Blood coagulated and separated. Plant life decayed into a greasy, unrecognizable sludge. The human cost was staggering. Of the 7 scientists who first worked on the project, 5 are said to have perished, victims of their own creation. Whispers place these terrifying experiments deep in Lower Silesia, near the Wenceslas mine. Here, the skeletal remains of a concrete structure, nicknamed the Hinge, still stand, a silent monument thought to be a test rig for the device. It was part of the vast, subterranean labyrinth of Project Riese, an underground network that may have served as the crucible for an experiment in anti-gravity propulsion. Yet for all its terror, historians dismiss it as folklore, a fabrication born of post-war paranoia. Not a single confirmed blueprint, not one official document, has ever surfaced. The most plausible explanation is that the bell is a distorted memory, a composite myth forged from the fragments of disparate but very real Nazi research into advanced physics. But the legend endures, a testament to our fascination with the forbidden. It has become a cornerstone for theories of secret technologies, of flying craft designed to escape a planet consumed by war. The absence of proof has only fueled the speculation. In the end, the story of the bell is not merely about a weapon. It is about the void left by history, a space where the shadows of what might have been grow longer and darker than any documented reality. From the collapsing heart of a dying empire, a ghost emerged, an artifact of a future that was never meant to be. Among the most unsettling discoveries of the Second World War was the Horten Ho 229, a jet-powered flying wing that seemed torn from the pages of science fiction. Conceived by the visionary Horten brothers, its design was a radical departure from any known aviation principle. A single, sweeping wing, devoid of a conventional fuselage or tail. This shape, eerily prescient, possessed properties that would not be fully understood for decades. A dramatically reduced radar signature, an accidental foreshadowing of the stealth bombers that would one day command the skies. The few prototypes that tasted flight revealed an aerodynamic purity so advanced, their performance could rival concepts employed primarily plywood and lightweight composites, yet engineered to slice through the air at incredible velocity. The shape was a singular obsession, aimed at minimizing drag to unleash the full fury of its twin-jet engines. The Luftwaffe, desperate for a war-winning weapon, saw its potential. Here was a fighter-bomber that could outrun any Allied interceptor. A single pilot would command a machine 7.4 meters long, with a wingspan of 16.81 meters, the cockpit rising only 1 meter from the 50.2 square meters of its wing surface. Empty, it weighed 4,600 kilograms. With 1,700 kilograms of fuel, its operational range could stretch to 1,900 kilometers. It could carry a bomb load of up to 2,000 kilograms, a payload that astonished the Luftwaffe High Command. Fully loaded, this wooden specter could weigh as much as 8,100 kilograms, a mass intended to travel at speeds approaching 1,000 kilometers per hour. The Horten brothers never reached that number, but they came terrifyingly close. Power came from 2 Junkers Jumo 004B turbojets, propelling the aircraft to a maximum speed of 960 kilometers per hour. It could cruise at 900 kilometers per hour and soar to a service ceiling of 15,000 meters. For armament, it carried two devastating Mk-108 30mm cannons. On March 1, 1944, the aerial Wunderwaffe was put to the test. The trial was a qualified success, but the revolutionary design presented immense challenges for its pilot. Then, on February 2, 1945, with Allied armies at the gates of Berlin, the definitive version took flight. Tragedy nearly struck. One engine stalled, sending the prototype into a spin. Only a miraculous feat of airmanship saved both the pilot and the priceless machine. Development continued, fueled by the desperation of a regime in its death throes. But time had run out. The miracle weapon would never arrive. The Horten Ho 229 never left its hangars to join the fight, its engines falling silent as the Third Reich crumbled into dust. It remains a silent testament, a shape of things to come born from a world that had to be destroyed, an echo of an alternate history, proving that even in the service of a monstrous ideology, human ingenuity can cast a shadow that reaches far into the future. In the final, chaotic days of 1945, as the Third Reich crumbled into dust, Allied forces made a discovery that seemed torn from the pages of science fiction. There, hidden away, was the Horten Ho 229, a jet-powered flying wing, a ghostly silhouette of an aircraft decades ahead of its time. Under the aegis of Operation Paperclip, a clandestine effort to harvest the minds and machinery of a defeated enemy, the prototype was spirited away, first to England, then across the Atlantic to the United States. It found a new home, dissected and studied within the workshops of Northrop Grumman and the hallowed halls of the Smithsonian. Here, its radical design would whisper secrets to a new generation of engineers, its essence reborn decades later in the spectral form of the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. The work of the Horten brothers, though never unleashed in combat, became a foundational text for American military aviation. Yet this was not the only crucible of advanced weaponry. On the remote Baltic coast of northern Germany lay Peenemünde, a sprawling, sinister laboratory complex. Here, under the direction of Werner von Braun, the most ambitious weapons of the war were forged. These were the Vergeltungswaffen, the vengeance weapons, conceived in fury to punish Britain for its bombing of Berlin. The first was the V-1 flying bomb, a primitive, pilotless aircraft driven by a crude pulse jet. Its telltale buzzing sound became a herald of random, terrifying destruction, the ancestor of today's armed drones. But its successor was a quantum leap into a new age of warfare. The V-2 rocket was the world's first long-range ballistic missile. It traveled faster than the speed of sound, arriving without warning, its massive warhead capable of leveling city blocks in a single, silent strike. Though their deployment came too late to alter the war's outcome, these weapons sowed unprecedented panic, demonstrating a terrifying new potential for remote, mechanized death. In August of 1943, British bombers descended upon Peenemünde in a mission codenamed Operation Hydra. The raid was devastating, shattering the complex, killing key scientists, and stalling the rocket programs. But the delay was only temporary. The research, deemed essential by the Nazi High Command, was scattered to hidden laboratories, where von Braun's work continued unabated. After the war, the architects of this terror, including von Braun himself, were absorbed by both the United States and the Soviet Union. The knowledge honed at Peenemünde, intended to bring nations to their knees, would instead become the bedrock of the space race. The same engineering that sent missiles screaming toward London would eventually propel humanity toward the moon. It remains a profound and unsettling paradox that the path to the stars was paved with the instruments of total war, a journey born from the darkest ambitions of the human mind. In the summer of 1940, the unthinkable occurred. The swastika was raised over British soil. The Channel Islands, caught in the shadow of a fallen France, became the sole British territory to fall under Nazi occupation. For Adolf Hitler, these islands were more than a prize. They were a strategic dagger pointed at the heart of Great Britain. He decreed they be transformed into an impregnable fortress, a show of unyielding power. The order was given, and a colossal undertaking began. Across Guernsey, Jersey, and Alderney, the landscape was violently reshaped. Concrete bastions, grim monoliths of the new order, rose from the pastoral fields and ancient coastlines. At first, the German command attempted a facade of benevolence, recruiting local islanders to build roads and outposts. But as the war machine ground on, this fragile peace shattered. The SS arrived, and with them, the true face of the occupation. Forced labor camps were established, their gates swallowing Jews, defiant locals, and thousands of prisoners dragged from the far-flung territories of Ukraine and the Soviet Union. Under the lash, these souls were tasked with a brutal mission, to carve terrifying fortifications from the very rock of the islands. Intricate tunnel networks bored deep into the earth, while reinforced towers, bristling with machine gun nests and cannons, grew from the coastal cliffs. Some bunkers were vast, subterranean warehouses, filled with enough ammunition, weapons, and supplies to withstand a siege that might last for years. Manned by thousands of soldiers, this island fortress became a key link in the vast Atlantic wall. Yet, its strength would become its prison. After the liberation of continental France in 1944, the stronghold was encircled, an isolated outpost completely severed from its supply lines. As resources dwindled, the German garrison began to entomb itself. Bunkers and checkpoints were sealed from within. The soldiers retreated into their concrete shells, awaiting an Allied invasion that was already bypassing them. When liberation finally came in May of 1945, days after Germany's unconditional surrender, Allied soldiers stepped ashore not to a battle, but to a strange and silent world. They discovered entire underground complexes, sleeping giants of concrete and steel, fully armed and waiting for a war that was already over. Today, these structures remain. They are not merely ruins, but indelible scars on the land, silent witnesses to a brutal ambition. They stand as a permanent, chilling testament to the immense human cost of forging a fortress on stolen ground, a concrete echo of a history that must never be forgotten. In the final days of the war, as Allied forces reclaimed the Channel Islands, they unsealed a silent, concrete world. The occupation's network of bunkers, fortresses, and vaults revealed a startling truth: a garrison armed for a siege, yet with supplies dwindling to almost nothing. Faced with a landscape scarred by war, the authorities made a fateful decision. To demolish the fortifications would be to demolish the islands themselves. And so, the tunnels were sealed, but the monolithic towers and gun emplacements were left to the wind and the sea. They stand today as permanent, haunting reminders of how thoroughly a pastoral paradise was twisted into a fortress. But the Reich's most profound violations were not carved in concrete. They were hidden deep in the vaults of its financial heartland. Beyond the famous looting of great artworks, the Nazis orchestrated a more intimate theft, a systematic stripping of personal lives. Valuables, heirlooms, and simple possessions were confiscated from millions, particularly Jewish families, torn from them by brute force or the chilling calculus of expropriation laws. As American troops pushed into the ruins of Frankfurt, intelligence units began a grim hunt. They descended into abandoned factories, musty basements, and the subterranean strongholds of the city's banks. What they uncovered was a macabre catalog of human tragedy. In one instance, they found a swimming pool, drained of water and filled to the brim with a glittering hoard. Thousands upon thousands of wedding rings, gold dental fillings, and personal effects forcibly taken from those deported to the camps. These chilling discoveries laid bare the grotesque engine that financed Hitler's war. The prosperity enjoyed by some was purchased with the blood of millions. Allied authorities immediately began the monumental effort of restitution, but the process was a disheartening journey into an abyss. How does one return a life's possessions when the life itself has been extinguished? Records were destroyed, falsified, or had never existed. For items seized before the war, vague ledgers were sometimes found, more concerned with the assessed value of an object than the identity of its owner. For the plunder taken during the height of the Holocaust, there was not even that. Objects were simply piled into anonymous boxes, their stories erased. Commissions were formed, but they faced an impossible task. The theft was a direct byproduct of extermination, leaving behind no list of legitimate heirs, only a vast and silent void. Each object, stripped of its history, became more than just stolen property. It became the final, tangible echo of a voice that could no longer speak its name. In the war's wake, a haunting legacy of loss endured. For decades, survivors of the persecution fought to prove ownership of what was once theirs. But for many, the fight was in vain. Entire families had been erased from existence, leaving behind a ghost inventory of stolen heritage, art, heirlooms, and memories, now unclaimed. These silent witnesses to annihilated lives were eventually assigned to consortia, organizations dedicated to preserving a culture the Third Reich had sought to destroy. High in the Bavarian Alps, a different kind of monument remains. Here, perched atop a mountain above Berchtesgaden, lies a structure known as the Eagle's Nest, a fortress of ideology. It was built as a 50th birthday gift for Adolf Hitler. Officially named the Kelstein House, this retreat served as a meeting place for the architects of ruin. Reaching it was an exercise in engineering and intimidation. An elaborate road claws its way up the mountain, terminating in a stone tunnel. From there, a luxurious elevator, a chamber of polished bronze, Venetian mirrors, and green leather, ascends 134 meters, piercing the mountain's core to deliver its occupants directly into the building. As the Second World War reached its violent crescendo, Allied forces advanced into southern Germany. They expected this alpine region to be a final, fanatical bastion of resistance. Yet the Eagle's Nest, for all its imposing grandeur, was taken without a major fight. In the surrounding complexes of bombed-out villas and bunkers, soldiers uncovered the regime's inner world, personal documents, propaganda, and caches of looted goods. They walked through lavish rooms, discovering how the Reich's most powerful figures had relaxed in comfort, even as their empire of 1,000 years collapsed into dust around them. In the 1980s, after decades of use by the United States Army, the site was returned to German administration. Today, it is a tourist attraction. The historic elevator still carries visitors to its summit, offering a panoramic view of alpine valleys, a breathtaking vista from a place of breathtaking evil. But as the war entered its final, desperate stages, the Nazi leadership looked not to the sky, but deep into the earth. Cornered by the advancing Soviet Union, a red wave from the east that crushed armament facilities on the Eastern Front, the regime sought refuge underground. In the Harz Mountains, a subterranean war effort took shape. Here, thousands of prisoners lived out their final days in forced labor camps, digging tunnels into the rock. They were converting the mountains themselves into makeshift weapons factories, shielded from the Allied air attacks above. Railway lines snaked deep into these hidden complexes, a secret artery for raw materials. But the failing logistics of a dying state could not keep pace. By the end, with the trains unable to meet demand, the Nazis forced the starving workers to haul materials up the mountainside with mules. These places endure. One, a scenic overlook haunted by the ghosts of its former masters. The other, a silent network of tunnels carved by human suffering. They are landscapes that hold the profound and terrible duality of history, the heights of absolute power and the depths of the cruelty required to sustain it. Deep within the forested hills of Thuringia, Allied intelligence detected the faint signals of a hidden world. Reports spoke of an extensive system of tunnels, of vast chambers being carved into the earth for purposes unknown. They could scarcely have imagined they were observing the birth of Mittelwerk, what was believed to be the last, desperate refuge for a cornered regime, the final fallback for the Nazi high command outside a burning Berlin. Far from prying eyes, a secret war machine churned out small arms, tank components, and ammunition. This was a labyrinth born of desperation, a direct response to the relentless Allied bombing campaigns that had shattered the Reich's surface industries. Here, planners prioritized the ceaseless flow of production above all else. Ventilation, lighting, and accommodations were brutally improvised. The construction itself was an act of immense cruelty. Prisoners were forced to excavate the unforgiving rock, their bodies broken to create what SS officers envisioned as command centers, administrative offices, and vast storage depots. They endured unimaginable hardships, a sacrifice measured in the lives of between 10,000 and 20,000 forced laborers. When American forces arrived in April of 1945, they captured not a fortress, but a subterranean ghost town. They found entire workshops, abandoned mid-task, machinery standing silent, half-assembled weapons and stockpiles of munitions littering the corridors. Faded blueprints whispered of a grander, more terrifying vision. Werner von Braun's plans to expand V-1 and V-2 missile production deep within this mountain sanctuary. Yet the liberation was stained by its own darkness. As some American divisions advanced through the mountains, they executed large groups of workers transporting raw materials. It was later verified that many of these victims were not collaborators, but SS prisoners from the gruesome camps that dotted the area. For these crimes, some soldiers would eventually face trial. Over the years, local governments have unearthed remnants of bombs and hazardous chemicals, sweeping the land again and again for hidden mines. Even now, the submerged passages pose a silent threat, a treacherous legacy of structural instability and the ever-present danger of unexploded ordnance. The tunnels of the Harz Mountains are more than scars in the rock. They are a chilling monument to the fusion of conviction and madness, a testament to the depths a regime will plumb in the desperate, final pursuit of its own dark ambitions. Deep within the earth, some structures revealed a staggering level of sophistication. They were accessed through hermetically sealed hatches, ventilated by complex, engineered systems. Their walls, thick with reinforced concrete, were designed to resist the shattering force of bombs and the silent poison of radiation. This advanced engineering led historians to a chilling hypothesis, that these subterranean chambers were intended for nuclear or missile research. Yet, for all the speculation, no physical evidence has ever confirmed it. When American and Soviet troops arrived in 1945, they conducted exhaustive studies of these sites. They combed through the darkness, leaving no corner unexplored, no passage unmapped. What they found was a world frozen in a state of incompletion. Skeletal hallways, partially installed machinery, and ventilation shafts that breathed only stale, silent air. Official documentation about the project's ultimate goal was scarce. Captured German officials offered only vague, often contradictory statements, deepening the enigma. After the occupation forces extracted anything of value, access to this underground world was sealed. Much of it was a half-finished tomb, the risk of collapse a constant, looming threat. In the decades that followed, historians and local explorers would rediscover these networks. They found remnants of forgotten construction materials and cryptic structural diagrams, ghosts of a grand, unrealized design. Some entrances had surrendered to the weight of the earth above. Others were permanently sealed by authorities, locking their secrets away. The true purpose of this immense network remains a subject of intense debate. Were these chambers designed to be a final, impregnable headquarters, a fortress bunker for a fallen leadership, or were they meant for the mass production of wonder weapons, an echo of the factories hidden in the Harz Mountains? One extension of this subterranean empire, however, held no such mystery. In the Harz region lay Mittelbau Dora, a name synonymous with suffering. It was a concentration camp complex, built for one singular, secret purpose: the production of armaments. Beneath the brutal barracks lay a network of tunnels connecting to the larger, unknown complex. But unlike its enigmatic counterpart, Mittelbau Dora housed the infamous V-2 rocket factory. Here, Jewish prisoners were forced into slave labor under the most inhumane conditions imaginable. Shifts were brutally long, food was a rumor, medical care was non-existent. The prisoners worked amid a storm of hazardous chemicals and heavy machinery. The catacombs filled with toxic dust and deadly vapors, turning the very air they breathed into a weapon. While the exact number of fatalities remains unknown, it is believed that more than 20,000 souls perished here, building missiles in the dark. The enormous expenditure of resources on these tunnels stands as a testament to a regime's final, desperate gamble. It mobilized thousands, not to win a war, but to carve out hiding places from a defeat that was already absolute. These vast, empty chambers are not monuments to a vision, but tombs of a delusion, a hollowed-out underworld built on an impossible dream and paid for with an immeasurable human price. In April of 1945, as Allied forces pushed into the heart of Germany, they uncovered a subterranean world of chilling contradictions. Deep within the Harz Mountains, they found an environment engineered for one purpose: the exploitation of forced labor at any cost. Within the cavernous corridors, a chilling tableau unfolded. Rows of partially assembled rockets, their sleek fuselages a stark contrast to the scattered technical drawings that promised a terrible future. This was the nexus of the V2 program. Tucked into damp corners, crude wooden bunks bore witness to a life of unimaginable suffering. A place where prisoners lived and died, mere steps from the toxic production underway. Allied experts moved quickly, seizing vital components and documentation. The secrets of the V2, a weapon forged in misery, were crated and sent to the United States for study. But as the engineers dismantled the machinery, a more gruesome discovery was made. In the earth nearby, mass graves revealed the true human toll of brutal labor quotas and non-existent safety measures. Specialized teams, collaborating with local residents, began the process of sealing the site. For years, the townspeople had heard strange, daily explosions echoing through the hills. They now understood the sound for what it was: the ignition of rocket engines, a prelude to a war in the stratosphere, tested on the backs of the dying. While much of the infrastructure was demolished, sections of the tunnel system remain, a silent monument to the fusion of technological genius and human depravity. Yet, while one arm of the Reich reached for the heavens with weapons of terror, another sought to dismantle its enemies from within, using paper and ink as its weapon. It was an operation of audacious cynicism, a scheme born of desperation. Operation Bernhard. Launched in 1942, the plan was simple: to flood the British economy with counterfeit banknotes, devaluing the pound and shattering financial stability. The Reich assembled an unlikely team: master printing technicians, meticulous engravers, and, in a cruel twist of fate, concentration camp prisoners who possessed the necessary skill. The operation was eventually moved to the Sachsenhausen concentration camp, just outside Berlin. There, under the strictest secrecy, prisoners worked day and night, using specialized plates, high-quality paper, and perfectly matched inks. They produced thousands upon thousands of forged notes. The final product was astonishingly authentic, so perfect, in fact, that many bills successfully entered circulation across Europe. By 1945, millions of pounds in counterfeit currency had been printed. As the Allies liberated Sachsenhausen, SS personnel scrambled to erase the evidence. Printing equipment was destroyed. Bundles of forged bills were dumped into remote lakes. An astonishing sum, believed to be as much as 400 million pounds, was funneled out of Germany, much of it finding its way to neutral Switzerland. One operation built weapons to shatter cities. The other forged currency to cripple an economy. Both were fueled by the same dark resource: the lives of the condemned. They remain parallel testaments to a regime's boundless ambition, matched only by its profound contempt for human life, leaving behind not just tunnels and forged notes, but a permanent scar on the conscience of the world. In the final, chaotic days of the war, as a vast empire crumbled, Allied investigators began sifting through the wreckage. They would uncover caches, submerged in the cold waters of Austrian lakes, and hidden in abandoned trucks, not of weapons, but of wealth. Stacks of counterfeit banknotes, meticulously crafted printing plates, and administrative ledgers that chronicled the enterprise with the chilling precision of an unofficial state mint. This was the tangible proof of Operation Bernhard, a plot of breathtaking audacity. It was a campaign of financial sabotage, waged not with bullets, but with ink and paper. An operation that fused the highest levels of artisanal cunning with the brutal reality of forced labor. It remains one of the most bizarre military strategies ever conceived, a desperate attempt to weaponize the very foundations of an enemy's economy. But as this shadow war of finance faltered, the physical war was closing in. In Berlin, the final act of the Nazi regime would not play out in the grand halls of power, but deep beneath the earth. Beneath the scorched and ruined streets lay the Führer bunker, a subterranean tomb for a dying ideology. Constructed in stages between 1936 and 1944, The complex was a warren of 28 concrete rooms, connected by reinforced corridors to the old Reich chancellery. Under the direction of architect Karl Piepenburg, hundreds of laborers had worked in 3 8-hour shifts, sealing the fate of the regime's leadership in a fortress of reinforced concrete. By early 1945, the constant rumble of Soviet artillery was the city's heartbeat. The regime's inner circle descended into this claustrophobic world, trading the sky for a ceiling of steel and stone. Here, in the stale, recycled air, the final, delusional strategies were drawn. Maps were pinned to the walls, tracking the movements of phantom armies, of divisions that existed only on paper and in the fading hopes of their commanders. Generals brought news of total collapse to a leadership utterly divorced from the reality raging above. The bunker endured the continuous bombing, its structure remaining largely intact, but inside, the atmosphere was defined by death and despair. In the last days of April, Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun were married in a brief ceremony. Within hours, their lives were over. Their bodies, carried up into the Chancellery garden, were set ablaze, a final, nihilistic act against the backdrop of total ruin. In the days that followed, a wave of self-destruction swept through the bunker. Other prominent figures followed their Führer's example, frantically destroying files and personal effects, attempting to erase their records from history. When Soviet troops finally secured the area, they found not a command center, but a scene of abandonment. Empty corridors littered with documents, the air still thick with the evidence of a government that had consumed itself. For decades, authorities attempted to demolish the structure, to erase its physical presence from the landscape. But the bunker was more than concrete and steel. It was a monument to the final logic of tyranny, a retreat from the world into a self-contained delusion, ending not with a final battle, but with the quiet closing of a heavy steel door, a final, suffocating descent into darkness, from which there could be no escape. Beneath the asphalt and the foundations of modern life, the remnants of another time lie in silent repose. They are swallowed by the relentless churn of progress, entombed under apartment blocks and the vast, unblinking surfaces of parking areas. All that testifies to what was lost is a single, unassuming plaque, a whisper of bronze against a backdrop of brick and steel. The curious are still drawn here, guided by a faint echo of history, yet the past itself remains sealed off, physically inaccessible. It is a quiet testament to a fundamental truth, that history is not always erased by force, but often simply paved over, waiting beneath our feet, unheard, until it is forgotten completely.